Well, here we are. Actually, that's me ready to go. And now we're just going to take a look at a few things that we've done in the past that are pertinent today, and which you might find interesting. You might not. But anyway, take a look and make up your own mind. So, first things up, let's let's have a go.
Cocktail party to celebrate Jiffy the giraffe's birthday. Such was the grip of cocktails in those days. Not anymore. We really, I woke up the other day and thought about cocktails, and I thought, yes, we still have them. You still see them advertised in pubs and bars, but the range and the wonder of the cocktail age has gone almost forever. Now, in researching this, I thought in my halcyon days, I had my wahinis and the occasional scorpion in Trader Vic's in Vancouver, in British Columbia. And I thought, I wonder what it was like. Do I remember it? So I looked up various pictures of the Trader Vic's cocktail bar in the Bayshore Inn in Vancouver. And sure enough, it flooded back with memories. But quite accidentally, I came across a newspaper article praising a very well-known local lady Diane Forsyth Abbott. And she was pictured with a number of ladies, and she was a master of the art of making good banquets and dinner parties and so on, and had gained international recognition for that. And I looked and I thought, that name rings a bell. So I did a bit more research, and sure enough, my good friend of many a year, David Kingsville Abbott, had married her. I think she was about the fourth wife that he'd had, and I knew all of them. David was a great character, an Irishman. He once, when he was in Ireland and I was in Northern Ireland, turned up at the front door and said, Keith, I've made a mistake. I made a booking at a hotel and they haven't got any record of it. I've got the entire Irish athletics team with me. What can you do? So we spread the Irish athletics team out around many houses in the area and had half a dozen lying on my floor for the night. One was a trainee priest who fell in love with my daughter, which was not a very good thing for either of them, since priests were still, I suppose, supposed to not have sex and to be absolutely pure as the driven snow. Anyway, I've wandered a little bit off track because David would regularly hold court in the Bayshore Inn to have cocktails. We had many a good time, but he was recognized by the authority in British Columbia by being given a fellowship, a lifetime award for his contribution to broadcasting, not least of which is also to cocktail drinking. And I've got that little thing again which tells me that I'm running out of time, but nonetheless it's a good thing probably because I've rabbited on for quite some time. And it's a strange way, I suppose, of talking about the cocktail. But cocktails are wonderful things, and I would hope that they might make a return. And that in remembering my good friend David Kingsville Abbott, by seeing his picture with his wife, Diane Forsyth Abbott, and his daughter Ingrid in newspaper articles surrounding Trader Vic's, made me cast my mind back to different days when I was living in North America. The cocktail was king in North America. I'm not sure that it was ever king here. I'm not sure that it ever really caught on. But a cocktail is a cocktail is a cocktail, and they are marvelous things. So, we had planned to talk about wine snobbery, quite important. So many people are intimidated by going to parties where everybody seems to know what they're talking about when it comes to wine. 90% of them don't. It's just an effect. It's a way to show that they are rather superior to the people around them. So don't be intimidated, and there is a little trick that you can get around to fight back. And we are also going to have a little bit of a cricket, because many a day I have sat in the long room at many different county ground and England ground and had a drink, not necessarily a cocktail, while the innings was going on and wickets were tumbling and bowlers were having a field day. And so often happened in the 70s and the 80s. Not so much today. We're rather better at cricket than we were. But anyway, we will talk about wine snobbery, and we'll talk about cricket in our next program, which comes in a week's time. So I hope that you'll forgive my ramblings, but it just shows how you can start off with Pierre Danino and a column in Le Figaro about what an Englishman is in the eyes of a Frenchman, all the way through the cocktail circuit to Vancouver, British Columbia, where I suddenly rediscovered an old friend who unfortunately passed into the great cocktail bar in the sky in 2017, David Kingsmill Abbott. So please forgive me for my memories, and I'll see you soon. In the cocktail way, toodle pip, toodle pip. Hello.
Many people find commuting by train tiresome. But one of the pleasures of taking a train to London is that it passes through some of the most beautiful countryside in the UK. None more so than the view of the countryside as the line approaches Clayton Tunnel, just north of Brighton. The tunnel is the longest on the line, at 1.25 miles, running under the South Downs. It's unusual because the entrance is not the usual railway brick. It is instead designed to look like the gateway to a castle. On top is a cottage built for the railway's lightkeeper in 1849. The tunnel itself was opened in 1841 and the cottage added later. Idyllic. But after 1861 it became a nightmare, or at least for those who believe in ghostly goings-on. In August of that year, a night train left Brighton, travelling north to London. Partway through the tunnel, it stopped at what it thought was a danger signal from the lightman. The engine driver was correct. The railway official had indeed given a danger signal, but the train had rushed past him before pulling up. Thinking the train had cleared the tunnel, the unfortunate lightman gave the all clear to a following train. And it slammed into the back of the first train in the dark, killing 23 and injuring 176 more. It was the worst ever accident on the line. And people walking on the downs over the underground passage have reported hearing the screams of the passengers as the trains piled into each other. The line is now also a direct line from Lewes. I've travelled through that tunnel 1,000 times. I've never heard a scream other than the screech of the wheels and brakes. But I've never walked over the downs at that point either. And I turned down an invitation to stay in the cottage overnight. In fact, I get tense each time I go into the tunnel, knowing what had happened more than 165 years ago. But my fellow passengers carry on reading their newspapers, obviously oblivious to both the tragedy and the ghosts. I could sometimes scream at them. The ghosts of Clayton Tunnel. Eerie. Bloody eerie.
Good morning, peeps. We're back in Hailsham after 3 weeks. I've had a few issues going on with health and various other stuff, but back to full strength again now. Gardens are looking good. As you can see, the rain is here to help things grow. So our little perennial garden in Hailsham that we've been working on for the last few months is now really...
Oh, we kept poor old Alex and Joey up in their prime. I'm not quite sure what happened there. I'm a little loath to go back and find out in case it happens all over again. There we go. Let's see if we can find something else to put up. Is Alex again?
Good morning, peeps. We're back in Hailsham after 3 weeks. I've had a few issues going on with health and various other stuff, but back to full strength again now. Gardens are looking good. As you can see, the rain is here to help things grow. So our little perennial garden in Hailsham that we've been working on for the last few months is now really coming together. We've got enormous hollyhocks growing. The alliums are all out, cicerantiums. It's an absolute blast of life now, and we're still not in the main growing season. So another few weeks, it'll really come to life. I walk down through the garden, and you'll see there's a naughty dog hiding in the foliage as usual. But we'll have a stroll down here, and we'll have a look at the vegetables. So as you can remember, we planted courgettes and peas and sugar snaps in the outside bed, and as you can see, these have come on an absolute treat. So the courgettes are now flowering, and the sugar snaps and the peas are doing remarkably well. I'm very pleased. In fact, they're flowering as well. I'm just going to spin around at this low level and show you how the garden is looking. Look at that. That is a proper perennial garden. And as you can see, the theme of purple, white and green has been completely maintained. And actually, I'm really pleased with it. It's looking nice. Obviously, the second year, next year, it will look better. Gardens always come into their own once they've been in and they've established. But Bruce, who lives here, is doing a marvellous job. Excuse me, marvellous job of watering everything. I've just done some light weeding, and the ground is really soft. So he really has been watering, especially during that really hot spell we had. I'll just show you the greenhouse, because the greenhouse is also doing remarkably well. We've got a couple of cucumbers, which are also just flowering. Then we've got some chilies, some peppers, and then an array of tomatoes. Unfortunately, we did have a little bit of a disaster, and as you can see, my greenhouse here has no door. So I'm not actually able to keep it really warm, but it's not the end of the world, because during the really warm days you are meant to open the greenhouse, otherwise it can all start to, you can get too much moisture in there and things can rot. Joey, stop that. Things can rot and you can have problems. So it's not the end of the world, but it does mean that on obviously cooler days and days like this when it's raining, that you don't get the heat going in there. So our crops will be possibly later than some people. The reason why we have no door is because the storms that came earlier in the year basically blew the door off. It flew across the garden and shattered. So that was the end of the door, really. But yes, it's really coming together. I'm just going to show you this enormous hollyhock, which in a couple of weeks' time should have a prong of about 2 or 3 feet on top of beautiful. I think these are pinky purple, because I bought those to go with the white foxgloves, which you can see in the middle there. There is a white foxglove just coming up. The other foxgloves haven't actually flowered yet. Anyhow, just a short one today, because I'm just getting myself back into the swings of things. It's been a really busy few weeks. The gardening world is going crazy. It always does in May, June. Well, April, May and June are always the busiest times of the year. But we'll be back here next week, and hopefully by then we might even have some sugar snap peas and mange too that maybe could be picked and eaten. So that'll be where we are. Anyway, from Joey and I, have a good day. See you soon. Bye.
Are you in?
There you are. It's how to go courgettes.
I'll be there 5. Yeah. Right.
Why not? It's good a job to do as any on this morning. Just to tell you that it's about 19 degrees. We're going to hit 19 degrees outside. A gentle breeze. No rain in sight. It's quite a pleasant day. And that is going to be the theme of the weather for the next week. This upcoming weekend is going to be quite sunny. All in all, still quite pleasant. Not a bad autumn, all in all. And just occasionally it's a little bit cool in the morning, but not too bad. Not too bad. Right now, I'm known as being a tall tale teller, so I'm going to tell a tall tale.
Well, wine. Wine. No beer. Gracious as well. Not even going to talk about wine. I thought I was, but I've decided instead, and sometimes the nose, the nose for a nice drink, steers you in a different direction, as indeed does a nose for a good story. I was going to spend just a minute or two talking about cocktails. Now I'm going to talk
today?
about them for several minutes. Because when I was researching cocktails to find out where they were nowadays, and I thought that they'd all but disappeared, even though one of my favourite tipples is a Bloody Mary, which properly made is indeed considered to be a cocktail. But as I researched and remembered some of the glory days, I fellowship a lifetime award for his contribution to broadcasting, not least of which is also to cocktail.
I've already done that one. For some reason, this system decides it's got a mind of its own, and that's not what I wanted to play at all. And let's go back and force it to do what it's supposed to do, and give you the
Beckham, the army did not come down, but the fact that General
Oh, yeah. No, it's so superb. It's so superb. It's so superb.
The life of a journalist, a nomad or a roamer or whatever you want to, and Get Me Out was very comforting. As it's coming up to Christmas, the other thing that I found very amusing is quite often very serious people get into debates about how intolerant we are and that societies should recognize those who are of different faith and so on and so forth. Well, Kosovo is 98% Muslim. And one of the things that I wasn't sure about, and I didn't want to offend my staff, and I said to them, would you like to celebrate Christmas? Do you want to decorate the office? And what do you do? Oh, yes, please, they said. Well, I had a little bit of money in the budget, so I said, well, off you go, get a few decorations. And off I went. I came back later in the day and there had been hectic activity, and I walked in and there was more ribbon, more baubles, more Christmas decorations, more tinsel than you could shake a stick at. There was a Christmas tree, there was absolutely everything. And you understand I've never been to a brothel, but that's the way I think that an inside of a brothel would look like. It was decorated to the hilt, and this in a Muslim country. And I walked out later that day and they sort of laughed at me and said, you know, Mr. Keith, we don't really worry about these things. We celebrate Christmas and we enjoy it even though we're Muslims. And sure enough, outside the main hotel, the Europa Hotel, there was a nativity scene, quite a large one, put there by the city. And around the corner was a mini moke, one of those sort of open jeeps that you find at the seaside whenever we're allowed to go to the seaside, that people travel around in. And around the corner came the mini moke with music blaring, jingle bells and carols and so on and so forth, and with a Father Christmas yelling out, Merry Christmas, have a happy time, and so on and so forth. It took me aback. The one thing that you expect in a Muslim country is that they don't celebrate Christmas. My goodness me, in Kosovo it was a Christmas to remember. It was terrific. And we had several parties initiated, I may say, by my Muslim staff and not by me, although I'm always good for a party. So, out of jail, courtesy of the General, Christmas in a Muslim country with mini mokes, Father Christmases, nativity scenes, and an office looking like a brothel. Doodle pip. The life of a journalist, or a nomad, or a roamer, or whatever you want to call me, can bring up some very interesting situations and some very interesting places. And strangely enough, one of the places that I remember very fondly is Kosovo. And I had a couple of experiences there that I thought were amusing. They certainly weren't at the time, but in retrospect, not bad. On one occasion, I was there training some journalists, and there was a kerfuffle outside the office window, and I saw that the police were surrounding a man who was waving a revolver, and they had batons in their hand. Perhaps not unreasonable in the circumstances. But one of the chaps that I was training was an American photographer, and he was busy snapping away. And the police spotted him and immediately made for him, and he bolted back into the office. The police poured in through the front door, and my office was on the second floor. And I went down the stairs and in a very brave way said, "Halt, who goes there?" Thinking that perhaps the gesture might worry them, as they were Kosovar police and I was as a Brit. And an English voice came back and said, "Who are you?" To which I responded, "Well, who are you?" And it turned out that these police were being trained by an English policeman. To which I said, well, if you're training these police and I'm training these journalists, you know very well that you cannot take a camera away from somebody in the street, except if you are suspicious that it affects national security. Other than that, you have no right to take a camera from people. He was a half-decent sort of chap, and we sat down and we resolved the issue. But in the meantime, my staff, seeing the police flood in, and Kosovo being Kosovo, where in fact the police had up until that particular time, post-war, in the early 2000s, had a considerable amount of power. And so they had rushed up the stairs and they had phoned General Agim Ceku. Ceku was a hero of the war with Serbia. He later became Prime Minister, and I believe today, is still a minister in charge of the armed forces. But I got to know him, and I found him to be a very decent and honest man, even though he sees things as a soldier, and one would expect that. But anyway, we had become friends, and the staff, my staff, had phoned the general and said, General, the police are going to lock up Mr. Keith. To which the general said, tell him not to worry. If he gets locked up, I will send the army down and get him out. It's the first time that I've had an army and the protection of an army to get myself out of a sticky spot with the police. As it turned out, the jail did not beckon, the army did not come down, but the fact that General Chaku was ready to send them in and get me out was very comforting. As it's coming up to Christmas, the other thing that I found very amusing is quite often very serious people get into debates about how intolerant we are, and that societies should recognize those who are of different faith and so on and so forth. Well, Kosovo is 98% Muslim. And one of the things that I wasn't sure about, and I didn't want to offend my staff, and I said to them, would you like to celebrate Christmas? Do you want to decorate the office? And what do you do? Oh, yes, please, they said. Well, I had a little bit of money in the budget, so I said, well, off you go, get a few decorations. And off I went. I came back later in the day, and there had been hectic activity. And I walked in, and there was more ribbon, more baubles, more Christmas decorations, more tinsel than you could shake a stick at. There was a Christmas tree. There was absolutely everything. And you understand, I've never been to a brothel, but that's the way I think that an inside of a brothel would look like. It was decorated to the hilt. And this in a Muslim country. And I walked out later that day, and they sort of laughed at me and said, Mr. Keith, we don't really worry about these things. We celebrate Christmas and we enjoy it, even though we're Muslims. And sure enough, outside the main hotel, the Europa Hotel, there was a nativity scene, quite a large one, put there by the city. And around the corner was a mini moke, one of those sort of open jeeps that you find at the seaside whenever we're allowed to go to the seaside, that people travel around in. And around the corner came the mini moke with music blaring, jingle bells and carols and so on and so forth, and with a Father Christmas yelling out, Merry Christmas, have a happy time, and so on and so forth. It took me aback. The one thing that you expect in a Muslim country is that they don't celebrate Christmas. My goodness me, in Kosovo, it was a Christmas to remember. It was terrific. And we had several parties initiated, I may say, by my Muslim staff and not by me, although I'm always good for a party. So, out of jail, courtesy of the General, Christmas in a Muslim country with mini mokes, Father Christmases, nativity scenes, and an office looking like a brothel. Doodle pip.
Well, as you can see, if for some reason the system managed to cut that in half and then put it back together again. Heaven only knows how or why. I have really no idea. But that's the way the cookie crumbles at the moment. Okay, that's it for today. It's been a bit of a melange, a bit of a mishmash. Yesterday we got into really terribly serious stuff. Today, not so serious. Although the headlines this morning have got two stories that are really worthwhile, I think, considering. One is that the fast rail link to the north, Rishi Sunak is more or less on the verge of cancelling. and that's creating huge uproar right up and down the line between London and Birmingham and Manchester. The other is that Kenny Badenoch has said this country is one of the best in the world to be in if you're black, and says that we are not positive enough about all the good things that are happening. We're all being negative at the moment, and I have to agree. I think that he's right. We don't seem to be able to grasp the nettle and get behind anything. There are always those people to find fault. One of the things I suppose I found most hurtful is you'll see on the banner headline that we don't have bias on this program. Of course, we have bias, but it's not deliberate bias. It's we are not discriminatory. We are not biased, knowingly biased. We have a go at people and things and ideas, but we don't just take a dislike and do that way. And I suppose that the Brexit was the most hurtful thing because people that I've known for a long time and have deep respect for, virtually wouldn't talk to me because of my stance on Brexit. And they found it personally offensive. And that has stunned me. And to the extent, really, that I think that they tolerate me, they don't talk to me today because of the way they think I feel. And that happened up and down the country. If we can't actually have a democratic vote on something, which we did, and the result isn't exactly what we hoped, then I think that we accept it and we get on with it. We do our best to make it work. And that hasn't happened. And I think it's got to happen. Because if we allow it to remain a divisive factor, we will never get this country back on track. Never. And not only that, but we're turning out a bunch of a generation who just look at everything that the establishment does and sneer at it and fight it. I'm sorry, no matter how bad a government may be or how elusive or elitist a strata of society may be, it's not all bad what they're proposing. We need to look at things that way. Get behind it on the basis that we need to boost the UK. And you can't do that. You can't boost anything with negative thoughts. God help me, keeping this television station going. I know all about that. Really do. If I let resentment overtake me, it would close down. Would anybody care? Probably not. But I would, because it is a lone voice. It does not follow any diktat whatsoever. It allows opinion to be expressed about all sorts of things. And there's nobody that then says, you're naughty for doing that, except perhaps for viewers who can't accept that we really need to give a voice to almost everybody to get a balanced view of our society. And I find there are less and less people who have a balanced view. The right sees the left as practicing the politics of envy. The left calls them those filthy Tories, nasty, wealth-seeking Tories, whatever. God's sake, we're all people under the canopy of the sky. Let's differ. Let's differ in a positive way, and not with the negative attitudes that we're finding in our society today. because it is debilitating. Not just to me, to almost everybody. I find that negative views are paramount in our society, and they are depressing, to say the least. A damn good fight, a damn good row, that's one thing. We encourage that on the station. But negative, illogical thinking, no thank you. It's not part of human psyche. So why are we making it? I am ending my morning slot with a nice feel because Kevin is back. He was off last week. He thinks possibly with COVID. And so the beer taps were not changed. This morning he's back. It's Tuesday. He's given me the job of official taster, as he always does. I get to have a drink before the sun is over the yard arm. And in fact, what it is now is it's 10:19. Well over the yard arm. No, under the yard arm. So that's the way it is. That's the way we see it today. We'll be with you tomorrow. Take care. This is Mirador Television, broadcasting from the White Hart Hotel in Lewes, East Sussex, the UK. Wow. Toodle, 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 pip. I think. Yeah. Why not?
Thank you.